defines y as a function of x. Does it on 36? How do you know if something defines something y as a function of x? What does that mean?
Equals x.
Is y isolated? Yes, and
yes, it's dependent on it.
correct. You plug in something for x and you get y out, right? And also, is y isolated? And also, the other side, what is the only variable on the other side? Just x, right? If there was a y over here, like 8y, is that? No, it's not. And then it says, give the domain. What kind of function is that? What can you tell me about that type of function? It's just the eraser's having a problem. Can you tell me what type of function that is? You know, you've dealt with them extensively. What type of function is that? That's the form it's in, but what type of function is it, Sarah?
It is linear.
Linear, right. So if you were to graph this, it's going to be some line, right? Correct? And I don't know why this thing is going berserk. A line, what does a line look like? Oh, it looks something like this. What's the slope of that line? 6, right? What's the domain of any line that isn't straight up and down? What's the domain?
Domain negative.
All, exactly, perfect harmony. You said the same thing. All real numbers. What's another way to say that? Gabby Record told us that R with 2 bars or negative infinity, infinity. Correct. That is the domain of that function. Good. And then 39. He asked about 39, right? Yeah. Is 39 a line? Sarah, is 39 a line?
No.
No, it's not. Why isn't it a line? What's the obvious thing that tells you it's not a line? Gabby. It's not squared. It's to the 6th power. So first of all, is that a decide whether each relation defines y as a function of x? Is this y as a function of x?
No.
So 39, no. It's x as a function of x as a function of y. Now, in order to find the domain of this, you might need to know what it looks like. What does it look like? Anybody know?
Parabola.
But is it going up?
No,
it's going to the what? Sideways to the right. What does this look like? It looks like this. It's really steep going like this. Is that a function?
no.
It's not a function, but it's asking us what's the domain. What's the domain of that function right there? Of the relation. This is a relation, sorry.
Is 0 to infinity.
Yeah, it includes 0, right? Yeah, so it's going to be 0 to infinity. Correct. Another way to write that if you really wanted to, x such that x is greater than or equal to 0. That's another way to write it. It's the same thing. Either way is fine. Either way is fine. One's only, one's a little bit simpler, but they're the same thing. Correct. In math.
Negative things.
Negative things. Now that right there is not specific quite enough.
Negative in the radical.
Negative in the radical, and what else?
0.
Can't do any division here.
No.
No. So for this to be defined, we know that x minus 3 has to be what? Someone raise. Great. Yep.
Greater or equal to 0.
Can it be equal to 0? Sure. What's the square root of 0?
0.
0. So you just solve this. X is greater than or equal to. There's your domain. Done. That's your domain.
Oh, yes.
If you were to graph this, Chris, you know what this looks like? This is actually a sideways parabola, but it's only the top part of it. Where does it start? It starts at 3. Because that's the biggest, that's the smallest it can be, and then it looks like this. It's just that side of it.
So it'd be 3 to infinity.
Correct. So if you wanted to write it, you could write it x greater than 3, or you could write it as 3.
Those hard brackets.
You have to do hard brackets. Can you plug in 3?
Yeah.
Yes, it's really important because you can plug in 3. If you didn't, let's say this was a 2-point question and you said x greater than 3, you lose half a point at least. It's important. You can plug in. You get really averse to 0. You're like, can't divide by 0. Can't be. Well, can you take the square root of 0? Yes. That's meaning, are there any square roots or cube roots or fourth roots? No. So what's the only thing we need to worry about? Dividing by 0. So you know that x minus 2 can't be equal to what? 0. So x can't be equal to? So how would you state the domain? Be very careful. Gabby, how?
All real numbers not equal to 2.
All real numbers not equal to 2. Another way you can write that? X such that x doesn't equal 2. You could say it like that too. Or you could say r such. You could write a sentence with r. Totally fine. It's everything except for 2.
Also, you could be like negative.
It can be anything. You can plug a negative 2 into that, except for what's the only number that makes the denominator 0? 2 is the only one. Everything else is fine. What is it? 7 over what? And you have to put you see the parentheses I'm putting in there? You have to put those in. I'm going to do zoom standard. Look what it looks like, everybody. Take a look at this. Boom. Does the function exist at x equals 2? Look where x equals 2 is. What's going on at x equals 2? This is kind of cool. Yeah, I'll put it in there. Sorry, I needed more space. Like, what does this look like? Take a look at that. That's a little too far. Let me make this a little smaller. Yeah, there's actually something here. Anybody know what this is called? It's called a vertical asymptote. You can get infinitely close to it, but can you touch it? No. We'll look at these later. But that's what it looks like if you wanted to know. So is that function defined everywhere except for 2? Yeah, it gets real steep around 2, but it's still defined there. Like, can you plug in 1.9999999 into that? Sure. You can get as close as you want to, but can you plug in 2? No. Okay, let's keep moving here. Here's what's really cool about the next section. The next section is just a change in labeling. Just a change in labeling. This is literally the only brand new piece of information. Instead of just calling a function y equals something in terms of x, we're going to give it a name. The name of the function sometimes, or frequently, is going to be f. The name of this function will be f. That's it. So for example, we have written things like y equals 9x minus 5. Instead of y equals 9x minus 5, we call it f of x equals 9x minus 5. It's just a name change. That's it. Why? What's the point? Why would we start giving other letter names in there? Yeah, why?
Doesn't it just mean
Gabby, no typing. Yeah.
the function of x?
The function of x is. So, but why would we use f? Why can't we use g or h or n or q? Or could we use more than those letters? Sure. So why do we start labeling them? Chris, label things. It's just another name. So do you see that right there? Just another name. Just another name. So let's say we wanted to, for example, do this one right here. The spacing got a little messed up in my paste right here. You see the middle there? Let f of x equal 9x minus 5. Find the value of the function for f when x equals 2. This is what you're talking about, Chris. What is this question asking us to do right here, Gabby?
When x equals
2. So f of 2, where do you plug it in?
3x.
So what's 9 times 2? What's 18 minus 5? 13. So we found out, based on what we can do mathematically, f of 2 is equal to 9 times 2 minus 5, which is equal to 13. Done. That's it. Yes, say I asked you, what happens when x is equal to 4? Do that for me on number 1 right there. What happens when x is equal to 4? Do that out. Don't say anything. Let other people figure it out for themselves. Plug in 4. Anybody have an answer? Raise your hand. Who has got an answer for me? Meg, what'd you get? So you got f of 4 is equal to 1. Who agrees with that? Hey, someone's popular. Let's see if it works. Let's try it. So when you do f of 4, what do you get? Negative 4 squared plus 5 times 4 minus 3. What's negative 4 squared?
Negative 16.
Because it's the opposite of 4 squared. It's not negative 4 times negative 4. It's the opposite of 4 squared. So negative 16 plus 20 plus 3. What's that going to be?
Oh.
No, it's not.
What?
Oh, minus 3. Minus 3, sorry. It's going to be, indeed, Meg is right, 1. Nice. Okay, so can you plug in things other than numbers?
Yeah.
Sure. So for example, let's talk about number 2 right here. Let g of x equal 2x plus 3. Can we use g as the name of a function? Sure. Could I call it, instead of g, could I call it Bob of x if I wanted to? Yeah, we still want to have to write 3 letters instead of 1. Find me g of a plus 1. Try that. Without any help from anybody else, write down what you think g of a plus 1 is. So it's 2 times.
A plus 1 plus 3.
So simplify, end up with 2a plus 2 plus 3. So that's what? 2a plus? All done. Can you plug in anything you want? Yes. Do the rules change? No, they do not. So without using your calculator, everybody put your hands up. Hands up, everybody. Hands up, Sarah. Hands up. Everybody look at the board. For A, if you plug in 3, can someone tell me what f of 3 is? Put your hands down. Just, you don't need to write anything. Someone tell me what f of 3 is for that one. Next one. What's f of 3? Can someone raise their hand when they see it? When you see what f of 3 is, can you tell me what the answer is? Raise your hand when you see it. What's f of 3? Verdi. Yeah, f of 3 is 1. It tells you it in the chart.
Is f of 3 is a word group.
3, 1. Yeah. When you plug in 3, what do you get out?
1.
These are separate questions. They are not linked together. It's a different function.
So does that mean
f of 6 is negative 1. F of 0 is 3. F of negative 3 is 5. That's all that tells you. That's all. Does it tell you anything about any other numbers? No. This is just a different way to write a function. That's it. Now remember, what's in the blue circle? And what's in the range? Exactly. The inputs and the outputs. The domain is the set of all input. The range is the set of all output. That's it. Right. So on this one, just like the first one we saw in the beginning of class, what's the domain of that function? All real numbers. All real. What's the range? Same thing. It's the same thing. It's the same thing. Okay, so what about if I ask you on this function, what's f of 0 equal to? That means when you plug in x equals 0, what do you get out? Raise your hand when you see the answer. Raise your hand when you see the answer. When you plug in 0, what do you get out? Sadea. Yeah, what do you get out? When you plug in 0, what do you get out? 1. What about f of 4? Can someone tell me what f of 4 is? What is it? 5. Yeah. When you go to 4, you get up to 5. So can you use a graph to read values? Oh, and then I asked you, what's f of 5 going to be?
How is f of 4?
E, R, san, si, wu. When you plug in 4, what do you get out? What do you get out? 5. Thank you. When you plug in 4, 4 is 5. Everybody sees why f of 4 is 5? F of 4 goes up to 5. So ready, I'm going to reverse this a little bit. I'm going to say this. F of what is 3? Can someone raise their hand when they have that answer? The f of what is 3? F of what is 3? What is it?
2.
It is 2. Because f of what is 3? You start at 3 and then you work your way backwards.
So if you get the y-intercept, then you just add that to the x.
As long as these are lines.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
We're not always going to be dealing with lines. Yes. In this, it has y in it. So instead of y, what do you write? F of x. So now this is in function notation. Then find f of negative 2 and f of a. So if you want f of negative 2, without writing this down, can someone tell me what f of negative 2 is without writing it down? No writing. X. So what is this going to be? Negative 2 squared plus 1 is 4 plus 1 is 5. Chris.
What do you know what to put the parentheses?
When you're substituting in, always put the parentheses in.
Okay, so like going to the last question.
It was not the same. Look, I'll show you. When it was not the same. Look, let's get up there. Look, it was already there. See?
Oh, okay, the negative. Okay.
Ah, the negative was already there. It's clutch. It's a very, very, very important thing to realize when you need to put that in. In this one right here, is this written in function notation? Why not? 2 reasons. Why not? Chris.
Because you have very
So what do you need to do? Isolate y. What could I do first to start isolating y? Subtract what? So negative 4y is equal to negative x plus 5. Now what? Divide by negative 4. Divide by negative 4. So I end up with 1/4 x minus 5 over 4. What's the last thing I need to do to write this in function notation? F of x is equal to 1/4 x minus 5 over 4. You now have it in function notation. There it is. You've now done it. Exciting. 3 types of equations. That is slope-intercept form. Because it gives you the slope and the intercept. So if you're going to graph something in slope-intercept form, where should you start? Yeah, what point? You need to be more specific. The y-intercept. And the y-intercept is 0, negative 5 over 4. So if you start at 0, negative 5 over 4, where do you go once you start at that point? Up 1 and then over. Up 1 over 4. Up 1 over 1, 2, 3, 4. There it is. Let's say right about here. What do you do once you have both points? What do you do once you have both points? You graph the line. There you go. How many points do you need to graph a line? 2. There are 3 equations. There are 3 different forms of a line that we have worked with. The first one is y equals mx plus b. What's that called? Slope, intercept. Then what else is there? Which is what? by equals c. That's called standard form. And what's the last one? Y minus equals, yep, correct. And then what's that called? Point slope, because it can be any point, any point. If I don't say what form it needs to be in, you can stop at any one of these. Sometimes am I going to say write it in a specific form? Yes. Yes, Hannah. Let's just make one up here. So how about this? Ready? Y minus 6 is equal to negative 2 times x minus 4.
Yeah, and then
You have to put it in what form?
number 3 calculated skin.
Okay, so let's put it in standard form. What do we do first on this one? I just made this one up.
I just plugged it in.
What do I do first?
You identify the point you have.
No. You have the equation. You need to translate what the equation is, so you have to keep it as an equation. What is standard form?
Isolate
AX plus BY equals C.
Is y isolated, Gabby? No. So what should I do first on this one?
No, distribute.
Distribute. Y minus 6 is equal to negative 2x plus what? 8. What is on both sides over here? X and y. So what should I do to both sides? Y plus 2x minus 6 is equal to 8. Now what do I do? Nope. Add 6. Y plus 2x is equal to 14. That right there is in standard form. What form is this right here? Point slope. Are they equations for the same line? They are.